Welcome to the third session in this series looking at self-evaluation. In our previous sessions, we've introduced this document which shares the quality illustrations relating to Key Question 5. We have looked at what self-evaluation is and started to consider how you can join together the work you're doing with best practice guidance to ensure you record a truly reflective and evaluative summary. We've considered the how are we doing question and used an example as an illustration. As a reminder, the 3 questions you need to complete when submitting your self-evaluation are: how are we doing, how do we know, and what are we going to do now? It's important to be clear on what you actually know rather than what you think you know. Your evaluation should have clear, robust evidence. Ensuring you have robust evidence will help you be clear on what you actually know rather than making presumptions. When you're evaluating the quality of something, you need to look at a range of indicators and sources of evidence so you can ensure your evaluation reflects the whole picture. Sources of evidence could include performance data, the views of children and their families, the views of other stakeholders and professionals who interact with your service, direct observations of practice, reviewing documentation, and any improvement data. Think about where your evidence comes from and consider the information you already collect or what is available locally and nationally. Consider and understand the views of children experiencing care and support and their families. Be reasonable and realistic, but robust in the types of evidence you collect. Ideally, you shouldn't have to create new evidence specifically for a self-evaluation. Having proof of action or impact should already be an important part of day-to-day management and leadership within your service. The evidence should demonstrate your key strengths and weaknesses, areas for improvement, what works well, and what could be better. There are 3 types of evidence you collect. These are quantitative data, people's views, and direct observations of practice and documents. Consider the data you have to back up what you're saying. How have you measured what you are doing? If we go back to our evaluative statement from session 1 and 2, you can see the range of evidence which supports our judgment. This is self-explanatory, however, by breaking it down, you can see the information which sits behind our evaluative statement. There will be many more examples. This is a list of some of the quantitative data which could support our statement. A wee reminder for those who've forgotten, quantitative data gives us the numbers, for example, how many, how much, and how often. The gathering of people's views is hugely important, and all stakeholders should have regular opportunity to share their views and opinions. Again, a range of approaches should be employed to do this, for example, surveys, focus groups, professional dialogue, etc. Here are some examples of evidence of people's views we could use for our evaluative statement. How are direct observations of practice reflected? Have a range of people undertaken observations? High quality observations will give you clear evidence of how your service is performing. Remember to use the most appropriate people with the right skills and experience to undertake observations. Here are some of the types of observations which could be undertaken for our evaluative statement. So to recap, the how do we know sits behind the how are we doing question. It helps you to think of how you can provide the evidence to show how good you are. This should be concrete, measurable evidence and not just an assumption of how you think you're doing. When you're evaluating the quality of something, you need to look at a range of indicators and sources of evidence so you can ensure your evaluation reflects the whole picture. In our next session, we're going to look at the final question: what are we going to do now?